Well, right now I want to welcome in studio. We've beamed him up to the mothership. Dan Joseph from mrctv is with us. Dan, how you doing, sir?
Cam, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Hey, listen, last time we had you on, we were talking about the video you did where you talked with some of the protesters outside of the NRA. Thought that was very enlightening. And once again, another gun-related topic. Is that because you got such a great response with the last one, Dan?
Well, we wanted to do the other side. I mean, we've talked to a lot of protesters on the left, and sometimes we want an opportunity to show that they're wrong. So we thought there was this big gun show in Chantilly, and what you said before was absolutely right. The Second Amendment is very alive and very well in the state of Virginia, it was proven here. This place was packed. It was the nation's gun show, and they have it every year. And it was amazing. People of all ages, all genders, children, and it was, you know, I'll be honest here, I'd never been to a gun show before. This was the first time, and what I wanted to do and what I set out to do was I wanted to find out if some of these things that these protesters have been saying for years about gun shows were true, were accurate. And as you'll see in our video, we found pretty much that all of the things they were saying were completely false.
All right, so Dan Joseph goes to a gun show, brings a camera along, and let's take a look.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Joseph with mrctv. Now, if there's one thing that liberals hate, it's guns. So we decided to come to the nation's gun show. We're going to talk to some people and try to dispel some of the myths that some people may have about gun shows. This is amazing. How many guns over the weekend will you be selling, do you think, if it's a good weekend?
It's a good weekend here. We'll probably do in excess of 500 to 600.
Somebody came up to you and you got the feeling this person is mentally imbalanced, this person is a gang member, maybe. You wouldn't sell to them.
All I have to do is say, you know what, I'm not interested, and, you know, have a nice day.
What's the process? If somebody wanted to buy, say, this piece right here, what's the process that person would have to go to? They just say, hey, I want that gun, and give you some money?
No. You have to fill out a form 4473 for the federal government, and then the state police are on site here, but we also do a criminal and a mental background check through our state police website.
Okay, so you have to go through all that and pass it.
Yes.
And then if you don't pass it, no gun.
If you don't pass it, no gun.
All right.
More than likely, you will be arrested.
Have you seen any women come in and purchase, or?
Actually, I've seen a few women come in and purchase ammo and a couple handguns over there. There's a lot more women than I expected.
In the short time that I've been a vendor at gun shows, I have found the dealers that sell the firearms to be ultra professional and very concerned. Even more so concerned sometimes than what they lawfully need to be.
We do a bill of sale up front where a part of that is collecting their address, their telephone number, so their information, so there's a record of that transaction, and that covers both myself and the purchaser of the firearm.
The left likes to say these days, oh, we don't want to take your guns away. We just want basic safeguards like background checks and stuff like that. Do you think they're telling the truth?
We already do that. We already do everything.
So what do they really want? What's their main goal?
They want to take your gun.
Explain exactly what a concealed carry permit allows you to do.
It varies a little bit from state to state because each state has their own rules. Some states don't allow it at all, and other states vary. In Virginia, having a concealed carry permit means you can carry a firearm concealed. Put my shirt over, be completely concealed, and be able to go most places in Virginia, other than those that are specifically prohibited. You can't go into courthouses. You can't go into certain airport properties. You can't go into prisons or jails, things like that.
Right. This is my kind of weapon right here. Oh. A little stand for Democrats when they come. Look at that. Isn't that cute?
I've never had to fire. I've been in a lot of close calls. I've had two carjacking attempts, 2 home invasion burglaries when I lived over in Maryland.
These will take up to... It's light. I was expecting it to be really heavy, but it's really not. Do you sell a lot of these? How much would this... Oh, there it is, 6,000. Wow, I could buy a car for that, man.
Yeah, no felonies.
No felonies.
If you have a felony, you can't come to my table whatsoever.
So you actually follow the law based on what the law is?
Go figure.
So do you think like a criminal, somebody who is intent on committing a crime in Washington, D.C., who was from Virginia, do you think he would follow that law and take his gun off just because he was crossing state lines?
No, guns are
Makes sense, right?
Only the guys having in D.C. are the bad guys.
Someone asked me one time, why do I carry a gun? I said, because a cop is too heavy.
Do these guitars turn into guns?
Who told you that?
I figured.
You were supposed to know.
Nice, these are the nicest guns I've seen all day. So, President Obama not big on guns, but he does have a pen.
And I can use that pen to sign executive orders.
So if he was at this show today, this is probably the booth he would be at. As you were a former police officer, is that right? Is it true that you actually have to get tased as part of your training?
I'm the one that does it. Would you like to see?
You you tase me?
Sure.
I don't think I wanna see that. I think, but you will do it if I ask.
I've tased thousands.
Thank you for the offer of tasing me. I'm gonna pass this time. Maybe next time I come. Rain check on the tasing, absolutely.
No reporters were harmed in the making of that production.
Almost,
as far
but I
as we
decided,
know.
yeah, I passed. But you know what's so fascinating to me about this is there's so much stuff, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners already knew this, but for people who aren't really familiar with gun shows or have never been to one, this stuff is fascinating, and it flies in the face of everything that the left and the anti-Second Amendment crowd has been saying for years. The number one thing I noticed was safety precautions. Every table, every vendor was taking. The guy who was selling the Kevlar vests that I tried on was taking these precautions. Big signs, no felons. I mean, this was probably the safest place in Virginia to be at that given moment in time. And, you know, it was mind-blowing.
You know, I think a lot of that, a lot of the reporting, a lot of the writing comes from the fact, a lot of the fear comes from the fact that most of these people don't go to gun shows. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and the idea of wandering around, you know, a big convention center hall that's just filled with aisles of guns, that does not appeal to them. That's fine. It doesn't have to appeal to them. But there's a big difference between, that's not my thing, to take it away, I don't like it, it makes me afraid. And so, Dan, again, I think what you did was, again, you just demonstrated, hey, look, these are real, normal, everyday people who are going to the gun shows. And look, everybody is following the law. They want to follow the law. They don't want to sell to felons. They don't want violent criminals to commit another violent crime with or without a gun. That's not who these people are.
Right, and you know what it also does is it shows that the mainstream media really has completely ignored this. I don't know if there are a lot of other videos about gun shows, but as far as I know, recently no other group has gone and decided to film these and find out what's actually happening. People just assume that gun shows are a bunch of, you know, gang members or violent rednecks who are out there trying to purchase as many guns as possible and store them away or use them for nefarious purposes, and that's not what it is at all. You know, I was really amazed, and I can't wait to go to another one now. Like I'm very excited because I only got to see about half the exhibits that were there. But yeah, it's something that needs to be out there, and more education needs to be done about what gun shows are, about what the rules at gun shows are, and that it's not just something where you can go in off the street, throw some money down on the counter and purchase an AK, an AR-15. You just cannot do that.
Right. No, and listen, next time you go, let me know, because the Nation's Gun Show is one of my favorite places in Virginia whenever they hold it. And they do hold it more than once a year. That's right. But I'll tell you what, if you didn't get a chance to see everything there, Dan, you better be going to the NRA annual meeting in Nashville, Tennessee for all 3 days next year.
I think we might actually go to that, and we might actually cover that and really show what happens there, because as you know, I'm sure the left, and especially those protesters in front of your building, they hate the NRA, and yet they really don't know what the NRA does at all. So perhaps another video showing what that is like and that big gun show is like would be good for them to view.
So let me ask you this, in all honesty, having spent some time with gun owners and spent some time with gun control advocates who were out there protesting the NRA. I mean, these weren't just people who, you know, yeah, I kind of want more gun control. I mean, this was their issue.
Right.
Who's more knowledgeable on the issue, Dan?
Well, of course, the gun owners.
What
are.
side?
Oh, God. I mean, the misconceptions are what fuels the anti-Second Amendment people. And when you're out there, and I'm sure you remember the video we did last time, they were talking about Newtown and about gun control regulations in the same sentence, completely disregarding the fact that there was no kind of gun control or no kind of gun regulation that would have stopped the Newtown massacre. So they clearly are using talking points. They're using a lot of misinformation, and their entire reason for being relies on that. But when you're talking to people at the gun show, especially the guy who was talking about concealed carry permits, knew absolutely everything about them, had all the information on every state in the country. I couldn't follow him because of the way he was listing off information so quickly, and because of the position that the mainstream media has put gun owners and gun rights advocates, it is necessary for gun rights owners to be more knowledgeable than their opponents, just because they're at that natural disadvantage where the media is never going to give them credit for anything they say, and they're always going to give the other side the benefit of the doubt. And obviously, those we talked to at this gun show and those NRA members we talked to were incredibly knowledgeable. They knew everything they needed to know, and they were willing to say it on camera. And what's a shame is that you don't see the mainstream media actually finding these people and getting their view on it when they do stories about gun control, or when they're talking about things like Gabby Giffords, or you're talking things about Newtown. They don't go to those people to get the real story about it, and that's infuriating.
Well, it is. I mean, look, there's almost this narrative, I think, in the mainstream media that there's only one proper way to respond to, the murders at Newtown, or to respond to a home invasion, or being the victim of, someone you love being murdered, and that is to become an anti-gun advocate. Right. So that guy that you talked to, who had said that had been the victim of a couple of home invasions, a couple of attempted carjackings. This guy didn't decide, boy, we need to get rid of all the guns out there. He decided, boy, I need to be able to protect myself. I need to get my concealed carry license.
Yeah, and we're so glad we talked to him, too. We were so glad we talked to him, because one of the things that we've heard at a lot of anti-gun rallies from these people is, oh, it's a myth. It's a big myth that people use these guns for self-defense, that people use weapons for self-defense. Obviously, we know that's true. Well, here's a guy. Here's a guy whose job, he's made it his job to ensure that people can have concealed carry permits throughout the country, and he's standing there in front of my camera and saying, hey, here are some examples of when I have used my concealed carry and it has potentially saved my life or saved somebody else's life. You can't debate that. You can't say to that guy, oh no, you're wrong. You're not telling the truth. It's still all myth. It's all smoke and mirrors. You can't debate that, and we don't see that we don't see that guy when they're doing stories on this in the mainstream media.
Well, no, because they can't acknowledge that that gentleman exists.
Well, the argument's over. The debate is over if you do acknowledge that he exists.
Well, exactly. Look, I'll give you another example. Friday, we were talking about this woman in Detroit. Her name is Paris Ainsworth. She's 51 years old. She's a mom. She's a grandmother. She works in healthcare, and she's a concealed carry holder. And it wasn't this past Saturday. It was the Saturday before last. She's getting off of work, pulls into her driveway, sees two guys coming up. She gets her .45, puts it in her pocket. She gets out of her car. Guy starts shooting. Shoots her 4 times, 3 in the side, 1 in the hand, but he doesn't shoot her in her shooting hand. So she's able to draw her gun. She returns fire. She shoots one of them. The other one goes running. And she says, if it weren't for my gun, I wouldn't be alive today.
Right, and there's so many...
Plain and simple. That's it. And again, the moms demand actions of the world, the Bloombergs of the world, the gun control advocates of the world, they cannot acknowledge that Paris Ainsworth exists and did the right thing. Because if they acknowledge her existence, then all of a sudden they have to try to rationalize why it was a bad idea for Paris Ainsworth to be able to defend herself with a gun.
And they're definitely not going to acknowledge the people who have the gun and have used it to defend themselves and who have not shot that gun. And that's where they use these bogus statistics where they say, oh, well, there's only so many cases where guns that are fired have saved somebody from being... Well, they're not counting all the times where the criminal sees the gun in the hand and runs away. And that's always been one of those things that's sort of, I can't really understand how they can ignore such an important caveat to the whole debate. But, dishonesty and misinformation is the way that these anti-Second Amendment groups, I think they're desperate now. I think they continue to see that pro-Second Amendment candidates and pro-Second Amendment Americans are going to win this debate every time we have it. And they are now reaching for the bottom of the barrel and trying to throw anything against the wall to see if it sticks in order to try to save the failing anti-Second Amendment movement. And in the end, it's not going to work.
All right, so Dan, what's your next video? Are you going to stick with the Second Amendment for a little while longer, or are you going to branch off into another direction?
Anytime we have an opportunity to, we're going to expose anti-Second Amendment people. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen all the time in Washington, D.C., but when it does, we go. We have all sorts of other things that we're looking into right now. We have the immigration issue here that's bubbling up. There are going to be protests about that all summer. Obviously, abortion is going to be a huge deal because the Democrats are going to continue to try to play the war on women card in order to save themselves. Everything, Benghazi. We, at MRC-TV, we find people on the street and we expose the liberal protesting machine. We go up to them, we ask them the questions that they cannot answer, and we show that they cannot answer them. And that's what we do, and that's what I think is so important about what we do at MRC-TV.
Well, listen, again, I really appreciate you coming in. Next time, make sure Matt Vespa gets tased, will you?
I was going to have Matt Vespa tased, but he was doing my camera. If he had gotten tased, then he wouldn't have been able to carry the thing. But Matt Vespa is...
You have him hand it off, you start filming.
Yeah, somebody's going to get tased
love you,
next
Matt.
time.
We're just teasing.
I think somebody's going to have to get tased next time, just for pure entertainment value.
Hey, you know, I guarantee it would be clickbait, you know, really.
Oh, yeah.
Just watch Dan Joseph get tased.
Yeah,
Click here for the amazing video, right?
I do it for the fans. I really would.
There you go. because that's the kind of entertainer that you are.
That's
Dan,
right.
Listen, I appreciate you coming in studio. We'll see you again soon.
Thanks so much, Cam. Absolutely. Anytime.